the official best battle buddy in Monster Hunter Stories 2 is Alwin. Is Avinia. It's Kayna? What's going on?
Try again, dude.
Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, welcome one and all to your answer to the simple question, which battle buddy should you bring with you? When you reach the end of the story in Monster Hunter Stories 2, you are given the freedom to play with whichever battle buddy you'd like. The full open choice between Kayna, Alwin, Avinia, and, well, spoiler warning, I guess, Reverto, Kyle, and Cheval, the horse, to bring with you on whatever adventure you choose to take in the game from this point forward. You can also, for some reason, just choose to shove Anna out of your friend group even though she has no mechanical effect on anything in the various activities that you can do. I just find that really funny. As far as proper battle buddies, though, there's a lot of things that you can still do after finishing the story, the proper end game of this game, and each of these activities have varying difficulty levels and varying types of objectives. So it's not quite as simple as saying one buddy is undoubtedly 100% all the time better than the rest. It's more accurate to say that they all have their own strengths and weaknesses, but one does do the most damage by a fair bit, and you could definitely argue that that is the real meaning of the word strength in this scenario. For a little bit of fun, let's go through each buddy in alphabetical order, definitely for no reason in the slightest. Alwin. You think that he'd be a great buddy, at least based on his name. I mean, Alwin. I'll win. It makes sense. It sounds almost like a cheat code to have him with you, like he'll make you fully incapable of failing, but the truth is, Alwin is perhaps the most dangerous buddy for you to take with you out of the entire roster. Notice how I didn't compare his straight up strength. I didn't say he's weaker than others. I said that he is the most dangerous. He has a bow, which functions exactly like the player's version of the bow weapon, having the ability to charge it to make the next turn stronger. The problem with having this on a buddy, though, is that they will just sort of on occasion ignore the fact that the enemy monster is attacking them as a whole and just charge instead. Just spend the turn charging the bow. Rather than even attempting to win a head-to-head or at least reduce their incoming damage, they just charge the bow, taking a full hit just for fun, because sometimes you just want to feel pain, I guess. I have a personal belief as well that in general the buddies that are riders instead of hunters are just more dangerous to have around you as a whole, as their Monstie defaults to whatever attack type they are in game. Like Yana, for example, if you go against an enemy that only uses technical attack types, will be at a significant disadvantage. Its primal urge is to do speed attacks. Sometimes they will ignore that urge, but their default is speed attacks. Honestly, in my opinion, Alwin might be the closest buddy on this list with those things considered to actually being a liability. He's not literally a negative compared to having nobody at all, but of all the buddies, he does the least to generally assist you while also being very much vulnerable to damage. Sorry, Alwin, today you'll lose. Avinia.
Don't forget me.
And Frostfang. This is a much more responsible pairing here than the last one, let's say. She uses a hunting horn, and with the specific hunting horn she uses at the end of the game, she actually has a really strong mix of songs. She has multiple healing songs, she has lots of offensive buffs, she essentially has bits and pieces of all of the song sets from multiple of the different normal hunting horns that the player would have access to, giving her a ton of great utility for any given situation if you want utility. If you're ever in a situation where what you want is a dedicated healer or just a lot of buffs, an excellent supporter of the team, Avinia is unquestionably the best in that regard. Her damage is, on the other hand, not fantastic per se, especially as she will, quite frequently, play songs instead of doing damage. But if you're using Avinia, you're not really using her for her damage, to be honest. You're using her for her supple healing, or because you're a simp. Either way. Cheval, the horse. He has almost more of a CC type of role, to put it in more specific terms, meaning that he specializes in locking down your opponents as much as he can, or at least a touch more than the other ones do. He hangs out with a Rathian that can poison, and he notably uses the sword and shield. Why is that important? Well, it's important because the sword and shield doesn't spend much kinship. Even the weapon skills that it has are extremely cheap compared to other weapons. The result of this is that his kinship bar tends to fill really quickly and let him use his kinship skill more often than the other battle buddies that are spending all their kinship on skills. The main thing that this results in is skipping turns, which can actually be incredible in the right situation. Kinship skills do this magical thing where they straight up deny your opponent from taking an action for that turn. That can save you from being hit by the damage of any given attack, but it could also save you from something really strong, if timed correctly. Most monsters will just sort of pause, then do the same thing that they were going to do the turn after, but some of the more dangerous creatures in the game will just straight up skip their most dangerous attacks if you use that kinship attack at the right moment, and this is the potential true power of Cheval. His damage is very much middle of the pack, but his utility in the terms of the way that he affects your enemy in non-damaging ways is his niche, I guess you could say, and you may find use for that on occasion. Kayna, well, we just talked about Cheval, who is an SNS wielding rider with a Rathian. Kayna is an SNS wielding rider with a Velocidrome. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, not sorry to be the bearer part of that. I like bears quite a bit. But Kayna is essentially just a weaker version of the same archetype that Cheval is. She can accomplish some similar things, but just not as strong. I guess the main thing is that her weapon is fire damage instead of the dragon damage that Cheval's is, so you can take that into account, I guess. That said, she'll be used. I know that she'll be used by a number of people, but if you're gonna use her, you already know who you are, and you know that nothing that I would say in this video can stop you, because you know why you're gonna do it. Kyle, the first of the hunters that we are talking about in this group, he functions a good bit differently than all the rest of the options so far, the rider buddies. The main thing to point out first here about the hunter type buddies is that they are just way safer, really, in my opinion, more than anything else. The hardest fights in the game are built to have specific moments in those fights that you have to dodge or mitigate in some way, or you'd be expected to die. For the rider buddies, those attacks could easily one-shot both them and their Monstie if you aren't over-leveled, or buffing the whole party, or dealing with it in some way yourself. The hunters, however, essentially have the combined health pool of the rider plus their Monstie. They have significant defense levels, and it makes them far more durable, and nearly impossible to one-shot with an attack that doesn't literally have one-shot written in the description. He also isn't beholden to an attack type. He isn't a Monstie, so he can do whatever type of attack that he wants, meaning you will never wind up in a situation where your buddy is just hard countered by your opponent the same way that you could with the rider buddies. As for Kyle specifically, out of the hunters, he uses a bow, and unfortunately a lot of the similar issues apply to him that apply to Alwin for bow use. The NPC AI is just not particularly fantastic at deciding when it should or should not charge the bow between just doing a normal attack, and surprise surprise, Kyle often charges his bow while getting whacked in the face, which isn't ideal for doing damage or for kinship generation. He does a lot of area effect type stuff though, which is probably his main strength. For if you plan on fighting a ridiculous multi-target fight, then you'll probably want to take advantage of this. Otherwise, he's just sort of outmatched a little bit by my main man over here, Reverto. If you've watched any of the videos that I've shown so far of me playing with a battle buddy, I've been having Reverto beside me, and well, put simply, he just does the most damage, like by a good portion. You'll often see him hit for exponentially more damage than you do as the hunter, and quite often what happens then is that I have to stop for a moment and cry about how bad I am compared to him. But it's fine, because while I'm crying, he will kill the entire monster by himself without my help. He's an absolute powerhouse. He doesn't have much else to offer. Obviously, he's also the hunter type buddy, so he has a great big massive health pool, and he is willing to dish out an ancient potion every once in a while, just like most of the buddies will. So he still finds a low-level support role, just, you know, he much prefers to smack things, which is fair enough considering how hard he smacks things. The thing is, it's not even just about that, because he arguably has the strongest individual utility skill of anybody as well, even though it only comes out during some fights. Taunt. He can straight up guard and taunt the monsters, forcing their attacks to hit him and also dealing significantly reduced damage to him as well. On top of the fact that, again, his health pool is big and massive for tanking those attacks. Those are all the separate uses of the buddies, and while I do accept that different people play differently and will want to use different buddies as a result, that's why I did talk about all of them and explain why you might want them in the different situations, but personally, I've just been sort of locked in on Reverto for quite a while now. So if you are completely undecided and just want my personal specific recommendation, this right here is the one for me. It's Reverto. All right, everyone, that is everything that you really need to know about your battle buddies and their relative strengths and weaknesses. Also the fact that you can kick out Anna. Which buddy is your best buddy? Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.